Smoke. Friday night. That's right. It's Friday night. Is it Friday? Friday? I don't know. Who cares, right? You're here. We're about to talk turf grass. Maybe you have a cold beer in your hand, right? From my good friend, our good friend, Ray. You know who we have on here tonight? Our representative New Englander, the guy, the quintessential masshole that we all know and love. And you know, if you're a Tom Brady hater or you don't like the Red Sox or the Celtics or the Bruins, well, this guy's going to tell you just get the hell up on out of here, right? and if you don't like Lush Lawns, right? The noun, not the person, right? Well, I guess the thing, not the person. If you don't like Lush Lawns, then you can get the hell out of here too. But hey, let's bring on our good friend, Aaron from Lush Lawns. Aaron, Lushie, as we affectionately know you, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing very well. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'll be honest with you.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah? You're ready to go?
All right. At least get Hey, fill it up Friday, right?
Yep, there you go. Number one. Hey, let's do hey, can we do a concurrent power hour and do the show at the same time? I don't know, but we're gonna find out.
I thought the after show would be a perfect power hour.
We should seek legal advice before we do that on air.
You know what? It's funny.
Yes.
It's funny you mention this because I had the distinct pleasure this past week to go up and actually visit Lushie. I was up in Providence near his hometown and got to go up there and speak at a big turf conference that they have up there to some of the fine sports turf folk. But I got to spend a good deal of time with Lushie. He picked me up from the airport. He dropped me off. He was a gracious host. Never tried to lay a hand on me either. And this is very gentlemanly of him, I'll tell you, for as good as I look. I mean, look at me. Did you resist
But this? I did take you on 4 consecutive hot dates.
We did. We seriously, our relationship expanded very quickly to many next levels. I mean, we started off at a white tablecloth restaurant. Our friend, our legal counsel, and the sponsor of our Burner Return podcast, Ray, Jesse Bousquet, joined us for dinner. Can you believe that, Ray?
Oh man, that would be the event. Okay, that would be the event, Ryan. I mean, one day, we will all be in the same place. Jesse Bousquet included.
It's true. And
one day,
actually, after we had dinner the next day, I get a bill for $750 in legal fees from Jesse Bousquet, but then there was a credit for $750 of turf grass advice. So everything canceled out. So it was a wash. But he still had to do it. He's a lawyer. He likes to keep everything above board. So Jesse, seriously though, thank you for coming out with us and hanging out. Thanks to Aaron for being a gracious host. You got to go visit with a bunch of and was it a good it was a really, really good time. Not as easy in the the imbibing part as you would expect. I played it safe. I was a good boy, Ray, because I had to present on the last day that I was there, so I tried to behave myself.
Yeah.
See.
Mm-hmm.
Now tonight, I've got a lot of.
And let me say though, that was an excellent presentation because we saw some good ones and some bad ones.
Yeah, yeah. It's something to be said. And if you ever, I will say this. Let me say this to the group: is that there are a number of really good educational talks that are out there, both online and in person. And I would highly encourage you, if you're really interested in this, to go check that stuff out. We're actually doing one in Ohio here later in December. That's our state turf conference. I mean, you're going to have golf supers, sports field managers, lawn care folks, all that kind of stuff. But I think we're going to try and create something that is a little bit more friendly for homeowners to come in. But there is a ton of good information out there. And if you feel like you're going to be an outsider, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to dress, anything like, don't worry about it. I would just say go and do it because that's some of the best education that you can get. Ray, there's a video I found a long time ago of you floating around out there giving a talk at one of these things way back when, somewhere in Honolulu, I think. You remember that?
That was back in 2010. 2010. That was like one. That was like one of my first times on the hot seat, and as I recall back then, after I got off the podium, then here's how it went. I got swarmed after I got off, and people were basically following me around, asking me questions, and then in the days and months after, I'd be getting emails and phone calls with even more questions, because essentially I kind of lit a fire under some people's asses.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that you'll have folks that go up there, and in what we experienced, what Lushie's referring to is there were some folks that were just going up there and kind of just reading their PowerPoint, and it was a little bit rough. Like there was not a lot of context given or development of thought and that kind of stuff. But all that said, is that I think there's some good info out there for homeowners that want to learn. Right? There's there's a certain amount you can take up through here, and this is very conversational, but sometimes it's good to get it direct from the researchers and go out there and ask some questions, build some relationships, and see what's going on. So I highly encourage that. You can't take education away from yourself after you get it, even if it's good or bad, Lushie, right? You got to have something.
This is true.
Got to have
true.
something to compare the good stuff to.
And while we're on that point, I really think I'm gonna start plugging early and often for people to become Patreon members. The amount of money that you spend and the amount of knowledge that you get with this group of guys that are on here it is so far in the good way for you. It's outrageous. When you're sitting down, and I was signing up for the courses, and that's fine, it doesn't bother me. But some of the other courses that you could take were how to read and interpret a soil report, and it was a 4-hour class for I think $150.
Yeah.
So I mean, you think about how many times we're going to go over some soil reports tonight, but that you can even contact these guys separately, and you'll get a private tutelage on your soil report for a fraction of that, and anything else. I mean, it really is. I really do plug the Patreon and really think. I mean, and again, you don't have to sign on to the premium. You can do the cheap one, and it'll still get you plenty of access.
Seriously, we appreciate that, and I think the whatever you want to call it, the value that's there or whatever. I mean, there is a to use and take one of Matt's terms, a metric fuck ton of intellectual property that exists on the J-Pink. Roughly how many hours of content have we generated in the last year or so? Roughly?
Oh, I'd have to go do an
Oh,
update.
come on, just ballpark it. Never mind. You get back to us. Flash the number on the screen or something, okay? But
Yeah,
seriously,
calculate it out and then flash it. Yeah. Calculate it and flash that thing.
There's two cool things about that, right? Is that number one, you were you're our second repeat guest, and we're very grateful that we've done this long and kept it going for this long. And the reason I would attribute that to is that we are literally friends up here that just get to talk about our one of our favorite subjects, death. Oh, sorry, I mean turf. On a regular basis. That's right, on a regular basis. And this is our outlet. I know these guys both feel the same way. Matt can't join us tonight. He is at work doing work things and making money, and nobody's going to fault him for that. And here's another thing: is if he needs to go do that, we're very supportive of him doing that. It's just the show will go on, and we're good. So the other thing too is just that it is difficult to and I'll go ahead and gloat for a second and just say it's difficult to find three people with the diversity and depth and length of experience and education that we have and commitment to this industry. And so to put us all together, it's pretty special. I feel special being a part of it. I'm glad that you're here tonight. And enough talking about us and carrying on. Even though we're 4 dates in, all right, I'm still not ready to commit. We just we need to take.
I'm playing the long game, DeMay. I'll get a piece of it soon.
Yeah. I think we should see other people. So all right, but anyway,
wow.
But, hey, by other people, you're gonna be here every Thursday night to watch me see all these other people. That's it. So
I'm jealous. I'm jealous already. It hasn't even happened.
I know. All right, so let's talk about you. For folks that don't know you, right? maybe weren't watching the show a year ago when we were clumsy as hell flipping through this show and starting to figure things out. Take us through, who are you, where exactly are you from, to the extent that you want to divulge, and what do you do? How did you get here?
Well, we're in the southeastern Massachusetts. We're a small lawn care company. I run it with my son as well. He does primarily does all the applications. He gets to listen to me tell him what to go out, put out, and has to deal with all the crazy stuff that these guys come up with that I have to then tell him what to do, which is great. Uh, I have made the long run through the landscape industry, from doing hardscapes installations, running retail yards, selling hardscapes, design, installs, plantings, and then help running companies that anywhere 25, 30 guys in maintenance and construction. And then I decided to kind of come back home a little bit and got on and actually worked for my local municipality in the water department now. Primarily, I was in the recreation department and maintaining over 1 million square feet of athletic fields.
Hmm.
And I did that for about 7 years. And then I had an opportunity to go to the water department, and we're doing that, but we're still running this business and enjoying making the grass grow.
See, and again,
See?
the story of the American dream, Ray. Oh.
Yeah.
Pretty
I mean,
much.
you can't get you can't get any better than that. I mean, you cannot get any better than that. I mean,
Yeah, and
hours
so
are
I guess,
long, but it's worth
oh
it.
man, yeah. Well, and I think that's the one thing that is noteworthy here, right? Is that there's probably a lot of people that had this start out as a side business, a side hustle, and just through sheer determination, will, and the desire to grow, not just the business but grow themselves, so they had more skills. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about some of the services that you've added over the years, right, to continue to drive profit in the business, right, and so you can reinvest back into it and do cool stuff. But yeah, I think that's something that there's probably people. We talked to Big Dog. We talked to Curtis here a few weeks ago.
Right.
A guy that's had a career in a specific industry for a long time, and here he is pushing the chips in. And God bless him. That is the American dream. Guys like Ray that said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to go out here and hang my own shingle." So, lots of respect for that. Lots of respect for people that are trying to get a little bit better every day. So, that being said, trying to get better. What where you got a lot of issues that I'm sure that you deal with and come across, right, in those spaces out there in southeastern Mass, because it's a rocky, acidic,
It,
just cesspool of, I don't
yeah,
want to say
it's a wasteland.
terrible soil, but there ain't a lot of good soil in nature.
No, I think
And
I
what
sent a picture to J Pink of what our typical lawn looks like, and Shane's doing an application on it.
Somewhere Matt Damon is saying we're gonna science the shit out of your lawn care program right
That's
now.
right, 100%.
yeah.
Another masshole too. God bless him.
Yep.
So okay, so you go into this situation, right, of taking on a new business and everything like that. What I just want to kind of take, again, people that may have not watched the show
Yeah,
previously,
yeah.
how, take us through those first steps, those first days of learning and saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to go fertilize lawns and I'm going to get paid to do it." What were some of those trials and tribulations at first? And if you can nail down like maybe your 2 or 3 biggest leaps, like when I did this, when I, picked up, yard books or some type of online software solution.
Yep.
I don't know. What are those things that have allowed you to make some gigantic leaps forward in the business?
Definitely purchasing a PermaGreen. I picked up a used PermaGreen and a trailer combined. It was a great deal. Got it home. Get PermaGreen right here. Links in the description below. Um,
Look
that
at that
is the
thing.
brand. That's the brandy new one that just came in, sold by one and only Paul's Prime Cuts. It was also a PermaGreen rep. If you'd like to get a hold of him, he'd be happy to sell you one. Or Jay Wydrick. The But yeah, we just purchased that, which is very exciting because the older one, let's say I got it out of the trailer, was driving around the driveway. That's the new trailer. We've
Look at that
actually
thing.
upgraded. Yeah, I've had walk behind aerators. The yellow walk behind Stinger is new to us. The X mark in the back left is new to us as well. That's the old PermaGreen. She's going to get a complete overhaul, new transmission. I think I'm actually going to purchase a new motor for it and go through and redo everything in it and just rebuild it. But I started out originally out of a pickup and push spreading everything, and anything that was needed to be done chemically was done with a backpack sprayer, just a pump backpack sprayer, and walking every yard that I was doing. Trying to do that after work and try to get productivity done, after working all day at the recreation department, and then, might have been out spraying fields, spraying fence lines, whatever it might have been. And then you go out and you're a little tired and you're trying to do the right thing and you don't get as many things done as you want. So purchasing the PermaGreen allowed me to speed up a lot. It allowed me to kind of go out on like a Saturday morning and really crank through and get things done. I know to kind of raise dismay. And actually, before the PermaGreen, I had bought a skid sprayer. I completely forgot. I bought a 50-gallon skid sprayer because that allowed me to up my chemical applications instead of walking around and having to refill that backpack every time, and bringing jugs of water or borrowing it from a customer off the hose. I got the 50-gallon skid sprayer and gave me a lot of ability to go out and do more work. Then I went to the PermaGreen, and just reinvesting back into the company and purchasing, a larger trailer from a little 10-foot enclosed to a 14-foot to then be able to carry more equipment around, when we're doing renovations. That's really kind of what's really jumped you mentioned Yard Book. That was very, very beneficial in the beginning because it allowed me to be able to bill very easily. And it's actually a pretty good program where you can do managing, routing, and it actually does way more than I do with it, and that's one thing I need to work on is actually get that up and going a little better.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, I think
right.
that's interesting. So, like, Ray, how does that jive with where I'm just curious for some perspective here. I mean, obviously, it's a different time than when you jumped in. I mean, how much do you think things have changed? Is it more difficult to get in the game now because there's more competition, or what? I'm just curious of how many parallels there are there, and maybe some of the distinctions between the era that you got into it versus Lushie.
Okay, when I got into it, there were some things happening. Like, for example, when I got into it, that was mid 2007, and here's where it got interesting, Ryan and Lushie. By 2010, guess what happened?
Late on me.
2010.
Oh yeah, I mean 2010 was already at the bottom in 2010, man. Like, what?
No, 2010 is when what happened that was significant and meaningful in my region was MSMA lost its residential lawn label, and it was going to be restricted to golf courses, sod farms, and roadside weed control only. And the reason why that became significant is because any old Chuck in a truck used to be able to concoct a hot mix of MSMA 6.0, maybe some three-way, and just go burn holes in the lawn. But can't do that anymore. But at that 2000 by 2008, 2009, I was already embracing the newer technology. I was already embracing the newer tech.
Did you think that was a detriment? Like, well, and here's my question about that time, right? Like, you, because of the way that you do things and your methods, I think are very low risk, low cost, right? In that sense, where I think somebody that was highly leveraged and had a shit ton of equipment at that time was probably like, oh shit, there goes my customer base and there goes all my payments for my stuff. How did that land with you?
Well, that didn't hurt too much because, for example, that is when, as I said, I embraced new technology and I thought, my goodness, this new stuff is excellent. I mean, it's enabling me to do things that I couldn't do before as far as the agronomic management of the lawn. So it wasn't a detriment to me at all, Ryan, because I just ran with it, and of course everybody else was saying, "You're going to apply what to the Bermuda?" I said, "Yup, yup,
Yeah,
it's happening."
yeah. The sprig weed control formula that you sent over the other day, that mix, I was like, okay, yeah, this is that's pretty involved. So okay. Now, anyway, so here's the reason that I ask these questions, right? And it's always good, here we are, right, in another situation where, I'm not an economist, I'm not a fortune teller, but, things are getting tight, right, in terms of on the cost side of things, right? Maybe not necessarily on the demand side, but we're getting pushed on the buying side. And so I think this is a great time, right, to do what Lushie's doing, where he's investing in himself and his knowledge, right? It's easy to go buy equipment. It's easy to say, we're just going to go buy another spreader and we'll push through this. We'll just get more clients and everything. But man, if you're using the wrong stuff and you don't understand what you're doing and you're losing clients or you're losing grass or whatever the case might be, there ain't a damn bit of thing you can do about that, right? You still got to make those payments. But if you're investing in that knowledge and you're putting the time into the books, right, and never done learning, then you're going to be just fine. So I am anxious this year, especially with Lushie, because I think we covered a lot of really good ground last year, and to kind of mirror what we did last year, but with a little bit more emphasis on, again, trying to be as efficient cost wise as we can be, because it's not like you can just go to your customers and say, well, guess what, it's going up 25% this year. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna tell you to go drag your balls across broken glass and get the fuck off their doorstep. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? So I think that is a really, really crucial point as we go through this, is understanding that how can we be as efficient. And when I say that, meaning both in the labor side, because ain't nobody got labor coming out their ears, right? On the product side, to do exactly what we need to do, nothing more, nothing less, right? And finally, try to realize what innovations and new technologies out there from a product standpoint that might help those efforts, right? Even if it's a little bit more costly up front, does it save us on the back end in terms of, much fewer callbacks, right? Which is ultimately going to cost us money. And that's a double-edged sword too, because not only is it costing us, the time to go back out and do it, but that's somebody else's lawn we could be treating, or more business we could go be chasing down, right? So I'm really anxious to kind of get into those 3 points as we take this through. But let's start with those soil tests, because this is where we kicked it off. This is where our
this is where I got beat, run over.
This was our this was our menage a trois plus one.
This was hell week.
It was. Pink, which one? Go ahead and throw up whatever one you got up there.
We'll just start page one.
Start with page one. Well, this time Matt's not here, so we can't do the Eiffel Tower with the giant standing behind us, unfortunately. But we'll try.
I threw a good one in there because I was hoping Matt was going to be here. And
I'm looking at this. Can we flash that picture up big real quick, just so everybody can see it, especially if you're a burner return fan.
This is the feeling of what it's like to be on the show and you've sent in soil reports and your pH levels are low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt, I can see Matt screaming at the top of his lungs on the pear, and not because he's mad at you, but because they had to nair his chest so much to get that picture taken correctly.
Yeah.
He is in vicious
Or-
pain.
No, it's not even near. I mean, wax, hot wax.
Oh
okay?
yeah. Or he
Okay.
took out a
Paste that on
That's-
and peel that son of a bitch off.
with like a paint roller with a 3/4 nap pulling that wax off, or he
Yeah.
may have taken out a second mortgage on the house to afford the laser hair removal. We just don't know. All right, now getting to the soil test thing here. Let's look at number 1. All right, kind of go down through this. Now, if you have not been a part of this, now last year this was sort of the impetus or the start of the original version of this program where we would just rip through soil tests, like it was a beer bong at a frat house, right, Ray? Like we would just go
Right.
through one after another, and at the end, we'd all fall on the floor in a pile, right? So this here is going to be, I don't know how fast paced it'll be, but we're going to look through these, kind of give our feedback on what we see, sort of with the numbers, just the quantitative data here, knowing nothing about it. Or I don't know if do we have any pictures associated with these specific lawns, Lushie?
This particular one, no, I don't, because I think I sent some, but it didn't correspond.
Okay.
Next year,
All right, well,
we'll have.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is a renovation that we did on the right side,
Mhm.
and the lawn on the left probably had the same look over the original lawn that was there. So this is something that's kind of come along quite nicely for them.
Yeah, looks good. Looks real good.
Looks
All right,
real
so let's
good.
go back to number 1 here. All right, so Ray, anything jumping out at you here right off the top?
This is the one time where I'm looking at somebody's magnesium and it's on the
Freaking
low
out?
side. Not freaking out.
Yeah.
Not really freaking out,
Okay.
but it's a little bit on the low side, and right off the bat, I'm thinking this property would be a candidate for one liming with dolomite lime, and
Yep.
then subsequent limings with high cal lime, just to jack our pH north of 5.5.
Yep.
Please.
So I'll give you guys a little backstory. This is a new customer that we got called in on.
Mm-hmm.
He had I think, J Pink, I sent you a picture of the chinch bugs. This guy had chinch bugs, which we
Oh, is it
generally
this
Oh,
one?
don't get.
lovely.
There you go. So I found this
Oh,
little
yeah.
guy,
Lovely.
and I found them without a soap flush. If that tells you how
Damn.
bad the
Damn.
infestation was.
If you can find them just by looking around in the lawn without having to soap flush, or did I tell you guys about the Chinese water torture method that was taught for taking up chinch bug?
Please tell me.
Okay, cut the bottom off of a 5-gallon bucket, right? Jam that bucket into the lawn and keep on filling
Oh,
that
yeah.
bucket with water until the little bastards swim up to the top. And if they do start swimming,
You got them.
Well,
yeah.
that
So-
or just go ahead and spray it. Just go ahead and spray a pyrethroid and beat them.
Yeah,
we
it's-
went in with we went in and hit it with dialogue.
Mhm.
And gave it a
Awesome.
good, we actually used the skid steer on that. We did dialogue, and I think we actually used the cedar oil with the permethrin in it
Okay.
as well.
Nice, spicy.
Yeah, just wanted to spice it up a little bit. And we used the
Spicy.
skid spray, and we put that out at. We used the liquid dialogue. We went out at 2 gallons per 1,000. Try to water it in.
Was this
Yep.
person treating their lawn or doing anything in particular? I'm just curious that phosphorus number being
Actually
pretty
had
high, pretty
had a company.
Hmm.
Had a lawn care company treating their lawn.
Yeah, that
And
might have been. I was
they
going to
couldn't-
say.
They couldn't
Right.
answer why the lawn was turning yellow. And I treat the lawn across the street, and he's like, well, his lawn's not turning yellow. So we got a phone call. So I come in, I look, I found the chinch bugs. All right, well, that's this. We'll do a soil test. We'll see what else is going on. I got the soil test back. So we actually went in and aerated, overseeded, and then we put also when we got the test back, we applied 600 pounds of lime, and this is a 12,000 square foot lawn.
All right.
So we really gave it a good whack to try to push it.
Well, and I think that's something that my guess would be that this company was likely using starter fertilizer, right? Just because they felt like that's what they should do or something like that. Hard to say, right? But that's a fairly high phosphorus number for a typical lawn care program. That if somebody was running a zero phos type program or something like that, or the low phosphorus programs that and fertilizers that Ray so dearly loves,
Those are his favorites.
Oh gosh, man.
Now, I
Okay.
mean, we generally are high in phos.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So we're because Massachusetts has a phosphorus ban.
Right.
So you're not allowed to apply phosphorus unless you have a soil report that requires it, or you're seeding, or it comes from an organic nature. So that's when we can use it.
Got it. Yeah, I mean,
Wait a minute.
Wait, go ahead.
An organic base. There's really not a lot of differentiation between phosphorus bound to a chemical base or an organic base. And so what that means is somebody can go eat bananas with the Milo,
Yep.
jack up their phosphorus further, exacerbate their potassium deficiency, and in the end, make the lawn even more unbalanced.
Sounds like
Yep,
Ray is
but
going to give testimony to the Massachusetts General Assembly.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
All right. So
I don't know.
that was
That I think that one seriously. I think that's one in my mind. Like I don't see anything major there. I'm not, the potassium number. You're going to chase that forever and a day. You're never going to get there. So I think just be mindful of that, right? And
No,
we'll
you
talk
need to
a little bit
add
about
it.
the fertilizer.
Yeah.
You need to add
Well,
it.
we're
I'm
gonna-
just
we-
saying
we- yeah.
you can add as much as you want, and you're never going to hit that number. So just keep adding it, keep it in the maintenance program, but don't get too worried about that.
worried
number.
about the numbers, chasing the numbers.
Keep it in the program, but don't worry about. You're never. I mean, I don't see you ever getting to a 170 sufficiency level here, which is all based on your cation exchange anyway. So just don't worry about it. Okay, so I think this is one where you can shine. I think this one, it's great that it's a new customer. There's not a whole lot wrong there, and I think that's one where you can kind of go show them the basics. Hey, here's what's wrong. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what you should see, right? And here's the plan. That's all anybody wants to know is, hey, I'm going to pay all this money, but what am I going to get? It's easy to sit there and put down, hey, I'm going to fertilize the lawn and I'm going to treat weeds, and put that on your proposal, and you send that to them. What the hell? They don't know any better, right? Tell them what it's going to look like at the end. Walk them through that and show them the science behind this. So, all right, let's look at number 2. Let's see what we're getting here. Okay.
This is page 4,
item.
Lushie.
I can. Yep, I got it. This is all right. So this was another new customer at the beginning of the year, and it was nice to actually get a customer that the pH, the numbers. I actually wanted to check if those numbers were reversed. Was it supposed to be a 4.6? But to have something come in at a 6.4 and not need a tractor trailer load of lime to pull up as I go to do their yard. It was nice. We actually had to do a complete burn off of Bentgrass in this yard. They had quite a bit out in the front, and they also had a major crabgrass infestation on a spring hydroseeding, because you both know if it's hydroseeded, you don't have to water it. So,
oh my
Right.
God! Don't
yeah.
start with me. Do not start with me, man.
It is
Shit grinds
so-
my gears.
Oh,
Hey,
that's 3 I've heard in 3 days.
Ryan, guess
What?
how I came up with that, ghastly mix that you saw the other day in the Discord. Guess why I had to come up with that mix?
Because
I
somebody
had to
messed it up.
No, because I had to clean up after hydroseed jobs where they didn't make sure stuff was dead before they hydromulched in the zoysia sprigs. And number 2, Okay. Standard operating procedure here in Hawaii when you do sprig zoysia is when you sprig zoysia, one of three things needs to be applied to that sprig area a week after you sprig. Number one, oxadiazone on a Gulf or commercial install. Number
Great
two,
qualifier.
okay. Number two is simazine. Number three would be atrazine.
Jeez.
Yeah, but then if
Okay.
you don't do that, have that mix ready to go about a month after you sprig because you're going to need it.
Great.
Just saying.
I'm just saying that's. I agree with that, and I think it's something that's lost. Right? Is just, and I understand it from a lawn care perspective. We do a lot of aeration and overseeds. Right? We do some. I don't know how much of guys out there that are watching are doing new installs like what you showed in that first picture there, Lushie, of that lawn. I mean, there's a big trust factor there with the owner, right? That you got to turn them loose a little bit to do all the right things in between when you come by, whatever it is, once every few days, once every week, once every few weeks, whatever it is. And that, that's all the difference. Those first 4 weeks are absolutely critical, on cool or warm season. And
Yeah,
hate to say
new
it, but
installs or a heavy renovation, and they're a lot. I'm checking on them weekly, at least, if not maybe not twice a week, at least a drive-by walk through, watching the irrigation, looking for dry spots, and then communicating with them, tell them, hey, you need to up it. It's running too much. We got shots fired. Now we got some hot rodder in a car out there backfiring.
Oh.
Probably broke up with his girlfriend across the street.
Oh no.
I hate you,
Oh,
Wanda.
no.
I hate your guts. All right.
So yeah, I'll give them a lot of attention on a heavy renovation or a brand new seed.
That's yeah, I agree with this. I'm looking at the soil test. I mean, a couple of things that that jump out to me is, yeah, you can you continue to bump the potassium if that's what you're running on your program. Well, again, we'll talk about the fert that you're going to use this year. You can probably get by with just a few less apps of that that custom blend that you're going to be working with. That sulfur number, I don't get too worked up about that. Given the pH and where you're at, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal now, but I would monitor it in my mind. And the only other thing I'm going to say here is just with that CEC is no soil loading. Like, just don't sit there and load up with a whole bunch of stuff and expect anything good to happen. Quite the opposite here. So, you're in good shape on the phosphorus. I don't know, Ray. Anything here that is of significance for you?
Hardly. I mean, the only one that I'd be considering is this would be your candidate for your custom ammonium sulfate, potassium sulfate type fertilizer blend to up your sulfur levels and to maintain your soil pH and your potassium levels. I mean, that's basically all I do to it. And this is, of course, the easy yard because you don't have to bring the trailer load of lime.
Right.
No need.
I know this is a nice one.
What I mean, on a 1 to 10 scale, what do you give this one, just visually?
Yeah.
Visually, this was probably a 4 because, like I said, it was a 4. Yes, it was. We went in and actually we got into it seeding it late. They had the whole right hand side and down the back was all hydroseeded. It was a spring seeding. There was no follow care. It was a contractor came in, set the seed, and then they walk away. So what takes over? Crabgrass. There was, there was no pre-emergent put down. There was no tenacity, no quinclorac.
No
put down. There was
quinclorac,
nothing.
nothing.
Nope.
Yeah.
It was just, maybe an initial shot once in a while they put tenacity in, and that's rare. And they just do it and they leave it, and off it goes through the summer. And it just all of their seed, and I would say probably about 8,000 square feet of it out of 15,000 square feet, just turned to complete crabgrass. So on the
Yikes.
remainder, we found a good portion of bentgrass out in the front in the existing lawn. So we went
Mhm.
through and did our hot mix for bentgrass and crabgrass, which is Shore Power, Pilex, and Quinclorac,
Holy
and
shit.
go through.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I want it gone.
Lushie was talking to me. Lushie,
Yes.
yeah, Lushie
I'm
was
okay
talking
with a
to
little
me.
collateral damage when I want to get rid of it.
That's past tipper. You might have to go to the free clinic after you do that one. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
and
that's
It was built
it's
into
called
the
a
program,
burn then a
so that was
return.
okay.
A burn
is
then a
100%.
return.
that
When I
was
made
that
the
right there.
customer,
Yeah.
I made her repeat on the side of her house. It's gonna look better. It's gonna look worse before it gets better. And she kind of was like stopped and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. And I said, no, you need to repeat this. It's gonna look worse before it gets better. Because I told her what I was
Mhm.
gonna do. And I said, it's gonna be bad. I just want you to know that.
Yeah. And I think that's great of setting those expectations early on with somebody. I think a lot of times, you often see people that either don't want to, risk losing the customer because, well, you know what? Maybe, hopefully that three-way will clean it up, right? Or hopefully I can just spray 2,4-D by itself and that'll clean it up. That's
Right.
not. You got to know, again, using your products, your chemistries judiciously and making sure of that. But I'm glad to hear that it's on its way, to the higher end of that 1 to 10 scale. And you got to remember, it's like George Carlin said. I've never fertilized a 10, but I have fertilized 5 twos. So
That's
keep
right.
that in mind. Keep that in mind.
Mhm.
All right.
Mm.
So let's move on to the next one here real quick and see what we're working with here. Uh-huh.
This one.
Uh-huh.
This is a fun
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Ye-
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
well, not quite the trailer load of lime, but maybe some lime, could be
Yep.
indicated. And then of
He
course,
yep.
keep
He got there's a longtime customer whose original pH was around a 4.9.
mhm.
So we have
So
been slowly bringing it up.
just working on it.
Um,
Yeah, just working it up. Just
yes. Yep.
year
So like
by
he
year.
got, I'm trying to
That's
see what he got. He got
how long
July.
ago
He
did
got.
you take this over?
It's probably been a few years, a couple of years. We've gotten
Okay.
him to move.
Okay.
He got 425 pounds of dolomolitic lime in the
Mhm.
beginning part of the year, and then got 250 pounds of calcitic lime at the end of the year. So overall, he got about
I'd
40
stick with
pounds per
that.
thousand. And then we'll
Nice.
see what this season's soil report comes in at. Because this I pulled was in April,
Nice.
so we'll
Nice.
see what comes back around.
Well, this is just an example of slowly and gradually, raising your pH, because I'm going to guess that even though you're on a pH increase program, you haven't aggravated or else created any kind of yellowing, right? Because I've seen that
No, not at
happen
all.
too, where in the hands of the wrong person, lime can actually turn grass yellow. Okay? And usually those are the people that I've had to tell, I know this lawn is eventually going to need about 100 to 150 pounds of lime. However, I don't think you were supposed to apply it all at once.
Well, maybe we might have did it to 1 or 2.
Yeah, but then
But we're putting it out in December, and we know we're
Mhm.
going to have 4 months before the grass is gonna, it's gonna give it a good 4 months to work into the soil.
Yeah, and you also have the advantage of winter, because my understanding is that when the snow melts in the spring, all that water is a tremendous force for getting lime into the soil.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's like a ton of water, and so and here's another good thing about that amount of lime in the fall. Lime is not dependent on microbial activity to work its magic. It's strictly chemical, so all it needs is that spring snow melt. That's all it needs.
That's all it
There you
needs.
go. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and then I think on that, and then we have one more
Mm-hmm.
real quick. And this is the guy that I sent you the where he works, Ryan.
Oh yeah.
This is his lawn, which isn't too bad.
No.
So he got two
This is-
apps. He got a spring lime app at 15 pounds per thousand of domolytic, and then got a 15 in the fall of calcitic.
I think this
Was it-
one is pretty evident where you need to go with it. You know, if you can fixate on just using that, again, the custom product that we're going to talk about here in a minute, focus on that. Again, sulfur number, not super worried about that right now. You know, pH, that's going to probably be your same program there where you're going dolomitic on one, you're going calcitic on the other one, and live with that. I think this is going to be one that is a maintenance type situation. Again, where you're just kind of bumping things along. You hope to see a little bit of progress there on the soil pH, but it's not terrible at 5.8. Doesn't really get me all hot and bothered. I don't know, Ray. What do you think?
No, that doesn't bother me too much either. And actually, do you know what number I'm looking at? I'm actually looking more importantly at the calcium and the magnesium numbers, and I noticed that those are coming up because you see, the one thing that would alarm me is if the calcium and the magnesium levels themselves are like way up basement low, because the way it was explained to me is that calcium and magnesium are actually essential plant nutrients. Okay? I remember one of my fertilizer reps telling me the importance of calcium and magnesium is not just for soil pH, but calcium and magnesium is an important nutrient within the plant itself. So I look at calcium and magnesium as something that you need in the soil in adequate amounts if you don't already got it there. I mean, I'm sorry to my guys in Arizona, Texas, and California who sometimes have too much of it. as well,
Yeah,
as well as my
that's not our issue.
as well as my friends in Hawaii, where we got too darn much of the stuff.
No, that's not a problem we have. We can't put it out fast enough and hard enough
Mhm.
to get it out there. We
Yep.
joke with the tractor trailer, but typically we're putting out about a pallet to a pallet and a half of fertilizer. This
Mhm.
last round we put out 10 pallets of lime. Is just
Yep.
a little bit of a ratio, just to try to get through and get people caught up, people that have signed up. We were at the end. If you were new, we were really trying to get a good push on. We did have some customers we put 50, 75 pounds per thousand. I may have
Mhm.
one or two that we put that 100 pounds down. Um, push the envelope a little
Yeah.
bit here or there, but not to all of them. But but
Where it was
that
indicated,
particular gentleman,
where it was indicated,
yeah,
right,
well,
Lushie? I mean, and
yeah,
that
they,
is
they
the
wanted
value.
150 pounds.
But that's the value, Lushie, I think, of soil testing, is then you can then go around and look at a lawn and know, okay, it needs A, B, and C for sure. And once you do A, B, and C, you've basically eliminated or reduced the possibility that A, B, and C is actually what's causing the lawn's poor appearance. You kind of rule things out. You make it simpler. And that is the power of soil testing, because I get asked all the time, why isn't this grass growing? And my first question is, of course, when is the last time this lawn has had a soil test done on it? Never. Never. So anything's possible. And I'm not so good that I can take one look at the soil and say, "Oh, it needs A, B, and C," and I'm right.
Mhm.
That just don't happen.
It's actually, I know Ryan's brought it up a couple times. It's something new that I'm doing this year. For any new customer that calls,
Mhm.
I tell them they have to do a soil test. That's part of the
Mhm.
estimate. I'll write
Mhm.
up and do the consultation, but I charge them for that soil test. So, and it's gotten rid of, especially right now, because I think a lot of people are getting prices in that have gone up, and they're saying, "Well,
Mm.
let's call someone else and see what we get." I'm getting a
Yes.
lot of tire kickers calling,
Mhm.
and I have a lot of people that just, well, how much is it going to be? Do I have to pay $60 for you to come out and do that? Well, yes, that's how we know how much it's going to be. You want to know? I
Yeah, you
don't know
wanna
unless I
know?
do a test.
Mhm.
I can give you a ballpark estimate, but I'm guessing. And
Yeah,
that
you're
soil test will really narrow down what we're going to have to do. And that's gotten
exactly,
rid of, so for those guys that are new that are trying to get out there, that they're going to get a lot of tire kicker people that are going to be calling right
Mhm.
now because prices are going up.
Right, right. You see, that just, I guess, narrows down your customer base to mostly the serious customers where they're willing to get that soil test done and the initial consultation, and those are the guys that are probably they're serious about getting something done.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, because I do something very similar in that I tell people before I proceed further, there will be a soil test involved so that way I know what I'm looking at and you have an explanation as to why. You know, why are we doing things differently from how they've been done all along? Why? So, it's good that you do that. And Lushie, you brought up how your region or your area, the tendency is for the soil to be naturally high in phosphorus.
Hmm.
Uh, that would be the case where I think a soil test is just should be almost mandatory before you even think about applying anything. I mean, anything. And this is just thinking ahead and looking ahead in terms of what's coming down in the future regarding the government's position on lawns and lawn care,
Hmm. 100%.
right? Right? I mean, because right now, the various states, they see, okay, restrict phosphorus because the soil naturally has high levels. But phosphorus is not the only, you know, fugitive nutrient out in the environment. The other big
Right.
one is nitrogen.
Hmm.
That's the other big one. And so, like, what I am going to tell you about nitrogen is, do you know why I get excited about a high pH or a low pH? Why?
Uh,
The reason,
it has to do with nutrient use, correct?
yes, yes, it has to do everything to do with nutrient use. And if you have excessively high pH or low pH, that then limits, for example, how well that grass responds to, say, even a nitrogen application. And the reason why this is important is because if the grass doesn't respond, then the natural tendency is, under normal circumstances, to keep cranking up the rate until you do get a response. That is the
And I
usual
think
thing
this
to
is a,
do.
I think this is a perfect segue to show
Mm-hmm.
you the new fertilizer I had blended up. And I gave
Mm-hmm.
JP, I think he's got the sheet. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, here we go.
Uh,
I'm not 100%
So
sure
the
which
one on
photo
the
you want me to pull up.
That's okay. That's all right. Right
Okay.
now, the one on the left is the brandy new
mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
one in the middle was last year's. That was a 20-0-20 with
Mm-hmm.
50% uh, XCU nitrogen,
Mm.
and then it had
Mhm.
MOP because that's all I could get.
That's all
And
you could
then
get at the
we got
time.
the old. That's all I could get at the time. And then I had to, I still got a bag or two kicking around of the old Carbon
Mm.
X Pro over there, and you got to throw it in there always just because she's so pretty. But I have a label.
Yeah.
I think I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
You got that label I sent you, J Pink?
Yeah.
Might have sent
Throw
it
up
to you
that.
on the
Of
Discord.
the
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it
The 20-0-20 I sent you. There it is.
this guy?
So this,
Oh.
yep, this is what we had blended up.
Okay. Okay. I see what it is. It's ammonium sulfate, a biosolid filler, some methylene urea, some polycoat urea, and potassium sulfate. My goodness. Because do you know what stands out to me on most of your soil tests? Is that your soils tend to be pretty low in sulfur. And sulfur is actually a contributing nutrient regarding the color of the grass. And the reason why it's a contributing nutrient is because sulfur is the building block for amino acids within plants. And so without the sulfur, these plants can't make these amino acids, and that seriously compromises the plant's growth and development because that's basically a major deficiency. So I kind of pay attention to sulfur levels, and because when sulfur levels are inadequate, the mistake to be made would be to feed that grass or those plants sulfur-free sources of nitrogen, like say, let me think, like potassium nitrate or urea or polycoat urea only, where I think you would get more out of, say, supplying some sulfur via ammonium sulfate or even potassium sulfate. And that leads me to another point of discussion in that I'm not alarmed or concerned about you applying ammonium sulfate to your soils because you already have a plan to watch your pH and maintain your pH with liming. Okay, so because you're doing that, I don't have any issues with supplying nitrogen via ammonium sulfate at all.
Oh, this is the part I thought I was going to cry in because you're going to tell me I should return it all.
No, I mean, because the only time I've seen really horrible things happen to people is when they're not liming, right, Lushie?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
And then, because their soil pH is already so low, they're not getting nitrogen response. So what they proceed to do is they proceed to keep on applying that ammonium sulfate. In fact, I had to work with somebody where they legitimately drove their soil pH down to 5.
Oof. From
and they were supposed to be growing Bermuda grass on it.
Oh, that's not good.
And the way they were doing that was because they kept on hammering it with ammonium sulfate, wondering why the grass wouldn't get green. I show
trying to push it.
Trying to push it, trying to make it happen, where I come in and I lime that soil back up to pH 6.5. Grass goes green and stays green, and they can stop the abusive fertilizer practices.
Abusive fertilizer practices. Somebody should be investigated for that. All right, there should be a task force.
No,
with the
Lushie and I were just
department.
Lushie and I were just talking about how when your soil pH is not in an acceptable range, what can happen under normal circumstances, like given, say, nitrogen fertilizers being inexpensive, the tendency would be to keep on applying more and more nitrogen, trying to get that grass to be green and growing versus addressing the pH.
Yeah, I think. Well, okay. The pH thing is always going to be something that you're going to have to be very mindful of, and I think especially in the age that we're in with not only fertilizer restrictions, right, but also fertilizer costs, it would behoove you to manipulate that to the extent possible that you can. And again, given the volume of lime, the conversation that we had, Ray, I want to get your take on this. Lushie was looking at a eco lawn to potentially aid in his lime applications because he again is throwing down shit tons. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's I believe that's a U.S. standard measurement too, not the
metric shit tons.
Metric shit tons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots and lots and lots of lime. So do you? I've played around with that with compost. I don't know how it would do with pelletized lime, but any thoughts on larger scale applications like that?
For me, my only question would be, can that machine be adjusted such that it consistently throws down 50 to 100 pounds of prilled lime per 1,000 square foot? Because I know that Ecolon is made for throwing stuff like sand and screen compost, right? That's what it's made for. But I'm wondering, how would it do with a pelletized or prilled lime? And as I said, my question is can you close that thing down far enough so that it'll put down the 100 but not the 200?
Right.
Because 200 would be a lot at once. 200 would be plenty.
Yeah, I mean, you could make it snow in Massachusetts in July if you wanted to, right? So I don't know. Yeah.
If we and honestly, I'd love to get it so that's at 50 or 50 pounds per 1,000 would be a great application because it seems to be what the homeowner can stomach from a cost.
And what you need to do in most cases.
Yeah. And we can break it up. We can move it across. And not all of them are 150 pounds per 1,000. I know we show you some of the fun ones.
Mm-hmm. Some of the crazy ones, but then here's the thing that I'm thinking about too is if you have an applicator that makes the job go faster, that is always, an advantage. I mean, if, at any time we're talking about applying some kind of material, if we can make the actual application part go faster, then it works out efficiency wise for you too. And you don't have to tag along that cost, or else, even if you don't have to tag along that cost, you don't have to think, oh Lord, Mr. Donnelly's lawn needs, 200 pounds of lime. Oh my God. I mean, this is going to be painful, because I've pushed a spreader, a time or two. Never again. Never. Okay. Not doing it. Not pushing a spreader again. Not happening.
It's painful to ride a spreader and put out that kind of lime. When you have to do 50 pounds per 1,000, it's 3 or 4 passes in low gear. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's
but it's just tedious.
Monotonous. Tedious. You're just not doing anything.
Yeah, you got to ride across, 3 or 4 times. I get it. And versus you have that self-propelled, Ecolon, machine, and you just steer it across the lawn, one pass, done. Done. Right?
Yeah. I think you do if you get that though. You have the opportunity.
Take a moment to shout out to Princess Cut Lawn Care. I don't know when I'll be making videos again.
Oh. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Cool. The thing I was going to say, 2 things. Number 1, on the the eco lawn thing, I think you have an opportunity there to do to sell the 150-pound plus per application rate as the Scarface package. I think that would be awesome.
I might
we
just get a
need
separate trailer with Tony Montana sitting there.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we need. We need Tony with his nose in the grass, and his face covered in lime. That'd be perfect. The second thing is, if J Pink, go ahead and throw that link up real quick. There's, Turf Truth mentioned something in the chat, and this is a great article to kind of highlight, I think, what he or she or they are talking about, where the whole premise of slow release fertilizers being challenged in terms of, are we getting a prolonged response, right, from these products that claim to be slow release? So they mention it here as you go down here into the summary. It kind of summarizes it pretty well, obviously, because it's entitled the summary. How about that? Where it talks about there's a definite benefit, right, in terms of the environmental issues, right, that come up in terms of loading up soil before a big rainfall, and we get nitrogen fertilizer that gets into stormwater systems and things like that. But if you go down there, however, on all but one occasion, read that next sentence. On all but one occasion, both urea and ammonium sulfate were found to provide length and magnitude of a response equivalent to those of the slow release nitrogen sources used in this study. Now, and I will say this is that, a lot of what you will find in terms of literature on these particular products is, or are these graphs that are produced by the manufacturers. And Ray, there's always that caveat that's down there. Sometimes it's in like 8-point font. Sometimes it's like, a little bit bigger, but it says at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, like they're showing you this perfect bell curve of, oh, look it's getting you out to 12 weeks and it's fading out, right? It's fading out. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to have these in your program, right? Like, they're obviously there's clearly a benefit to a certain point of that, but if cost is an issue, go ahead. I
gotta add one more thing to that. 68F soil temp, and this is the big one. And your soil pH is dead nuts between 6.5 and 7. If it is below that, your nitrogen response to the amount of nitrogen being released by that granule is negotiable. If your soil pH is over 7, likewise, nitrogen response to that granule is also negotiable. So, because I've literally been on a job, right, where these poor people were diligently throwing out slow release nitrogen, and they tried at bag rate. Then they tried at double bag rate, and in each case, all they got out of even the double bag rate application was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks worth of nitrogen response, and then the grass fell down again. And the reason why the grass reacted or responded that way is because their pH was out of range. Puts the pH between that 6.5 and 7, and then the grass reacts more normally and predictably to a fertilizer application. Just like that.
I think there's something there of again, if somebody had the capacity, and again, this is where Boy Meets Lawn is making a point here to say that basically frequent lower rate applications as a homeowner is no big deal. As a commercial lawn care applicator, that might not fly with what you're able to do from a capacity standpoint or a workflow standpoint. And I just would challenge folks is if you could split up those lawns, right, and understand the differences between your irrigated lawns versus your unirrigated lawns, or in Lushie's case, like splitting up the ones that have pH problems versus the ones that don't. I get the geography is a thing. I get that, again, trying to be as tight and dynamic as you can be with your routes and everything like that. That is all important. And this is where it sort of gets lost in the wash when it comes to lawn care. So truth, I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying that you are wrong. you all are wrong. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things of how do we get more efficient. I would love to have that conversation of how do we become more efficient from a workflow standpoint. So if you're on a golf course, even right. So if we're trying to use the least expensive nitrogen sources, right? But we're also trying to reduce applications because labor is a concern, right? How do we factor in that variable within these response rates and try to find something that's a little bit more, a flatter curve, right, throughout the entire season if we can get that type of nitrogen response? I don't know. I haven't thought about it that much, but it's a question that lingers in my mind when we start talking about these things of, okay, if not the slow release, then how do we make this work? So good
Okay,
questions,
Ryan.
good food for thought. Go ahead.
Okay, Ryan. And the reason why that research report has found that there's not much difference between slow release and conventional is, when I'm working with a soil where the pH is between 6.5 and 7,
Mm-hmm.
I get over 4 weeks of response from either ammonium sulfate or even non-stabilized urea. I get the duration. And the duration is of an acceptable length such that I don't feel the need to have to try to prolong it via coatings or other. Of course, I am personally in favor of the stabilizing denitrification inhibitors because
Yeah.
they, what they do for me under ideal conditions is they make a urea application literally hold for at least 8 weeks.
Yeah, and there's some work that's going on right now, as a matter of fact. And I'm just asking Turf Truce in the chat if he or she may respond. But there is some work that's going on right now at Ohio State. I think the study was the grad student was in his first year last year, looking at DCD DCD specifically and by itself against other commercially available slow release fertilizers and I think urea as a control. And so basically making one application, then measuring response right through that entire period of, I think they're going out, I want to say 120 days, right? And still and measuring tissue levels, measuring soil nitrate levels, and just trying to look at a few of those different parameters to see what goes on. So I think it's interesting stuff, and really it's where we need to go, right? From a research standpoint. So, all right.
Yeah.
Mr. What's this guy? Oh, boy. Lushie, show the world the best beer. And did you go buy these special for me?
Especially for you.
Hold
on, we got to turn it.
Narragansett.
Narragansett, boys and girls. This is the beer.
Hi, neighbor.
Of specifically Rhode Island, but I've heard it can, it reaches out far and wide into New England. It's a popular choice. It's been brought back. It's now a hipster beer that once was the king. It fell by the wayside for a considerable period of time, and now it's back. I had my first Gansett, as they're so affectionately known as there, over this past week. And I have to say, it was pretty tasty. The locals said that it would lubricate my digestive tract in a unpleasant way, Ray, but I did not experience those side effects, and I was grateful for that. So
that's because you were being a good boy.
There was some of that, and I just attribute it to lots of practice as well. So
yes,
I appreciate that, and trying to understand where people go and how they get drunk in New England. It was really it was a trip back in time and forward too. So all right, moving on. Let's see. Okay, we got to talk about the fertilizer. Let's see. Do we want to go through your specific program, Lushie, or do you want to talk about grub control? Where's your head going here? On some of the topics
well, I'm looking at time too. What we want to grab. I know grub control is a good topic. Maybe we'll jump around a little bit. And
I definitely want to talk.
Control that grub. Yeah, right there.
All right. Let's listen. Let's talk about this. This is Lushie's form of red meat control. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so take a look at this. About this is a 35-ounce Tomahawk, and I actually had the stopwatch going on my phone. Now go ahead and post the second picture. All by himself, ladies and gentlemen, in 21 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're counting at home, that's 1.6 ounces of meat per minute. This guy is a red meat eating champion. Do not get in his way. So
No.
very proud of him. And we had our, this is where we had our legal counsel, right? We had Jesse Bousquet.
Jesse Bousquet was there. We had Lushie Jr.
our-
there just in case I passed out due to
We did.
exhaustion.
The vice. Well, no, seriously, that's why. The only reason I invited him to dinner actually is because he's the vice president of Lush Lawns, and if for some reason you became incapacitated, we were ready to swear him in as president of the company so he could take on the duties, right? And
I think when I went to the bathroom, Jesse Bousquet slid him the paperwork, and it was all filled out while I was gone.
Quite possibly so. Quite possibly so. I mean, that's just know how that all those kind of things work.
Yep. And again, a fine eating performance. I would have expected nothing less. Okay. A couple other things here. So let's talk about the grub control thing real quick. I think that's a good topic. And then I like the last one that you sent over. I would like to get into that a little bit. I think that's a little bit.
I definitely I do want to get into that one. That is
okay. Okay. It spurred on some good thoughts, and I want to make sure we talk about it. And we're currently covering this, so and some other places. So okay. So the grub control thing. Where are we at right now? Obviously, I think in Massachusetts, when is it? July 1 that neonics are going to be banned. Okay. So
not
neonics
entirely banned. A RUP. They're going to be a RUP, restricted use.
Oh, they're going to be okay. And
Massachusetts state restricted use.
Yep, you're going to need a restricted use license in which to get that.
Okay.
So not your normal core, which then also takes it off the shelf for any homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
Homeowners won't be able to go and buy that now. I mean, they can drive across the border to Rhode Island and go buy it and use it, but they won't be doing it legally. So that will be taking that off the shelf. So I have been using a Sulfur for a couple of years, but I do know that there is a new product that has just been approved by Massachusetts, and I believe you've spoken about it a few times, and I believe it's Tetrino.
Tetrino,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of wanted to touch base on pluses and minuses on either, and timings of applications, because I know you started to sweat when I told you when I applied my Celeprint app, which worked out well for me because I do it a little bit later. Probably like the first week or two of June is when I'm putting it out.
Okay. Yeah, and there's I'll see if I can dig it up here real quick and find the actual data table, but so as far as, let's just talk about the late application of a Celeprint. I mean, the good thing this past year, 2021, if you made a late application, man, you hammered those army worms pretty good, and you had no problems whatsoever with those, right? Provided that you wanted.
Yeah, we didn't get any of those.
Oh, okay. Well, here we were
ready.
Fortunate.
I was ready.
Here we were very fortunate. I'll find my picture real quick. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken of messed up turf grass. But anyway,
we do get a late. It seems like we're getting up here a very late season grub that is emerging and showing its head. Probably the ends of October is when it really seems to really show its damage. Mid to late October is when it's popping up. I think it might be the chaffer.
Yeah. Okay. So
we have a lot of brown chaffer.
Okay. Has anybody ID'd it? Like, has anybody? What we need you to do is we need to educate you on raster patterns so that you can go out and ID that bad boy real quick. I'll send you the
only reason I know about that we have so many chaffers is because we would find them in the pools when I was at the rec. I was also in charge of the pools, so we would find them in the skimmer baskets.
Oh, wonderful.
Lovely.
Oh, here's
so that was our capture technique.
Compliments.
Well, that's
I'm gonna send this.
That's their sampling
Mhm.
technique, is just see what
Yep.
flies into the skimmer baskets. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Yikes.
just they sort them
Yikes.
out and say, oh, that's a beetle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a
I
brown
mean,
chafer.
well, and so that's the thing is like being able to ID these is crucial, right? So you can understand a little bit of how those life cycles differ, right, from place to place. What
Hmm.
happens here in the Midwest may not happen quite the same up there. So the raster pattern, if you're not aware, right, and you're following along at home, this is on the hind end of your grub, and again,
Mm-hmm.
the way that these little hairs are uh,
And markings
arranged
are
here. Hmm.
the hairs and the markings that basically is the ID of it. And
So the other thing too to make people aware of on grubs is this is that a healthy dense stand of turf grass can actually withstand a decent amount of grub activity before it becomes what we can say commercially damaging, right? So where you would see effects up on the surface, right? So typically the number that is commonly used both in research and extension is 10 grubs per square foot. So once we see 10 or more grubs per square foot, typically is when we're going to see damage on the surface that could be commercially affecting that turf grass. And so it's good to know where some of these trigger areas are. So typically year over year, it would be a good thing if you have lawns that have higher pressure. Lushy is I would map those areas out, right? So you can go back and check those year over year. You know, s- Generally speaking, you're going to find them. Again on the south facing slopes, you're going to find them in areas that are a little bit warmer over wintertime, things of that nature. They'll find those areas and go in there. Um, you know, Understanding those patterns of when they're emerging, when they're feeding, everything like that, that's all good stuff to know. But I think the advantage here of using a diamide insecticide like a celiprin, like tetrino, is that mitigates a lot of that risk, right? So again, uh, don't feel like, and again, this is for folks at home too. If you're using the new version of the GrubX product, right, that you can pick up at any big box store, also has chlorantraniliprole, right, same active ingredient that's in the celiprin. And so I think that's really, if it's funny is you're driving down the neighborhoods here in the suburbs and looking at different lawns, and it was almost like you could tell the people that took care of their own lawns and really took pride in it and probably put GrubX out on their lawns had no armyworm damage, right? So that AI, that diamide saved their butts. So going forward and looking at your situation here, uh, the June timing does not concern me as much. I mean, there is a study, and I'm not going to try and dig it up right now, but Oklahoma State did this work. Gosh, probably 10 or so years ago, where they were trying like late applications of Celiprin just to see what would happen, right? So I think they make some apps in like June and even in July to see what happened. And they were right around, I think the lowest efficacy rating they had was about 88, 89% maybe on some of those apps. So again, let's just say that you have 10, 12% breakthrough. I don't know that you're going to get into a situation where that's commercially damaging,
A
right?
bit,
That you're going to
right.
reach that threshold. But it's also
And
good to scout those things out.
we
Go
had
ahead.
a big problem. Guys that were using Merit, they lost their efficacy because of the amount of rain we had. So
mm-hmm.
we had a
Mm-hmm.
tremendously wet summer, and a lot of guys that were using that Merit did have started to, you just driving along, you could see it in lawns that were being taken care of by someone, and you know y- and it's good. I get to look at the recreational fields that, I still know what they're using, and I know they were using Merit, and they lost control in some areas in fields that they normally wouldn't, where prior they did have problems because they weren't using any product. And it was, I think we lucked out maybe having a little later application due to the amount of wet weather we had. But again, I know the Trino is designed to go out a little bit later, but I mean I can also put the Aceleprint in a little earlier. I can put it in the round before in May.
And I'm not sure that you're necessarily losing anything if you haven't. Have you ever seen breakthrough to the point where you've had to make a curative treatment?
Once, and she was a non-irrigated lawn, and I don't know if she watered it in correctly. That's
And
the only time.
that's the other thing too is that you do have a lot more leeway with the diamides, right? More so than you did with the neonics because I can't
Right.
remember strictly. Ray, help me out here. Is it like Is it 24 or 48 hours that those need to be in before they start to photodegrade?
Okay, the
I think
merit or imidacloprid
Yeah.
starts photodegrading within 24 hours, whereas the chlorantraniliprole or the diamides like the tetrino and the acyliprin, you've literally got more than 7 days before you need to water it in. However,
Mhm.
I still would want it watered in AFP, so then that way mowing, etc., does not move the product around. I still
Yeah,
want it
can you
watered in before the grass gets cut.
can you
and with
can
that,
you please
if
put that in the
it
door
wasn't,
hangers?
yeah, put that extra F in there. So
Yeah.
hey, if
Yeah,
they,
please.
I got a question for you. So if
Mhm.
it hasn't rained and that product has been put out and they need to mow, should they just mulch it?
Yes, totally. Totally mulch
Keep it
it
everything there.
because
Don't suck it up.
don't suck it up.
No.
Don't move it. I mean, that's basically kind of why, in order to simplify things and to get maximum efficacy out of the application, ideally, no matter what you apply, it's ideal to water before the next mowing. Just get it watered before the next time they're going to mow. And it's not only from the standpoint of product efficacy, it's also a matter of product exposure. Because, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, EPA
Mhm.
wants to take away sprayed applications of clothianidin, thiamethoxam, and imidacloprid on residential turf. They want to take that away.
At least that. I've heard significantly more restrictions coming to the labels.
Because here's
yeah.
the thing, is that right now I spray merit on lawns, right? But the
Mhm.
rule is that after I spray it, I am triggering each zone of that irrigation system until the whole thing is watered in, and I don't leave until it is watered in. I don't go anywhere until it is actually watered in.
No, and I think there's something to be said for, again, that is such a critical component of a proper application, right? That
Mhm.
again, you are ceding much of the control to either Mother Nature or the homeowner to get done right, and they can play a significant role. That being said, just getting it raw, rinsed off the leaf down to the soil after that, you're good, you're fine, no big deal. But I definitely would, those post app instructions, I think would be, a helpful thing to add into, whatever kind of email follow up or whatever that you get. Hey, you just had your Grub application. If you can, please water within 24 hours. If don't mow within 24 hours. And then if you do mow anytime after that before rainfall, if you're not irrigated, please don't bag the clippings, right? Make sure that they blow the clippings off their sidewalks. Make sure that, so again, trying to eliminate or mitigate some of those off target effects that might occur if they blow that stuff out in the street, ends up in a storm drain, and then we're catching the rap for it. Okay, real quick, let's talk about
Yeah.
Tetrino. So again, we had there's a great discussion on the turfology episode of this from back in December or whenever that was, and essentially it's in the same class of chemistry as what celiprin is. However, a few things. The timing of it is later, so it's more around a traditional timing that you would normally put out an imidacloprid app, which here in the Midwest and in your part of the country is going to be in that like Father's Day window, I would say, a
Mm.
couple weeks on either side of Father's Day, depending on where you're at. And given that scenario, right, it fits in a little bit better with some people's rounds and how they're set up, right? So I could see that being a more efficacious product, right, if people want to get into it. The other nice thing too, as a pro, is that it is a little bit cheaper. So you're talking on the order of they've gone up through some price increases here on both products. I want to say it's somewhere between $40 and $50 an acre, right? So $1 a thousand, right? That's nothing to sneeze at.
sneeze that, but
Mhm.
that's cheaper than a Celiprin. I mean,
It is
yeah.
cheaper than it. Now, the other
Yeah.
thing, and this is for folks that use it on, use these products on fertilizer, right? As a combo product, is that right now and probably until maybe 2024, you will not be able to get Tetrino on a prill, right? That's not possible right now, given a number of different factors. But so that all being said, it's a good thing if you're already spraying and you want to save a little bit of money, still use a diamide. It's a good option to take a look at. I'm not shilling for either one. I've seen really good luck. J Pink, throw that picture up real quick. I love this picture. That's a Celiprin treated on the left, untreated on the right versus armyworms. That's the 8-ounce rate sprayed about 1st of May or so. And boy, howdy, if there's not a product efficacy picture that you want to take a look at, that's it right there. So, and again, it just shows what proper chemistry can do. Is it cheap? No. Is it effective on on these pests in particular? Yeah. And so I think that's one thing that we'll see a lot of changes in lawn care programs, and I hope that people can adapt to this. Right, it's a much safer product. Right, doesn't carry a signal word. Right, it's got a LD50 that is off the charts high, which is good.
Mhm.
Right, low, I should
How
say.
does Tetrino compare as far as signal words? As I actually haven't looked, and the LD50.
I have not looked at the
And
label, but I'll double check it real quick here.
and does
I'd
that still
imagine.
fall into the
I'm-
same context of being bee friendly like the Acelyprin is?
yeah. So
I believe it
I,
is. It is bee friendly, and I have one more little note on a bee friendly lawn. A
go
bee
ahead.
friendly lawn is a lawn that does not have
Weeds.
blooming broadleaf weeds in it. Okay, that is your bee friendly lawn, because I get asked that question too, because I use imidacloprid on turf grass, right? And my answer is that the bees have zero interest in this lawn because there are no blooming broadleaf weeds in it. It's, and furthermore, if you water your merit imidacloprid in, that further reduces exposure to bees and other pollinators because it's no longer on the foliage, it's in the soil where it belongs.
Correct.
So let's see here. That's actually not bad. Okay, so it does carry a signal word of caution, and
Mhm.
it's acute oral LD50, right? Which is what we report and talk about is greater than 5,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. On tetramnilopril is greater than 2,000 milligrams. So it's a little bit hotter, right? It's almost what 1.5 times, right? So just don't drink it, Lushie. Okay. I know that Tony Montana wants to
Stick
snort
with the
all the lime.
Gansets.
Stick with the Gansets.
Yeah,
for sure.
stick to the Gansets, I think. I mean, that would be the safest bet, but not this. But even 2,000 milligrams per kilogram, that's like a lot.
Keg of
because
Tetrino.
yeah,
You gotta drink a whole
because
keg of it.
yeah, because I go back to the days
big gulp.
where 50 or 100 milligrams per kilogram of something will definitely put you in the grave.
Yeah, this isn't the old days of Benelate and Chipco 1991 and cadmium fungicides and all that other good stuff, right? I mean, those are the
other
good old days.
Yeah, super good days. I mean, where hey, season long control.
One
No, wait a
fungicide up
minute.
a year.
Yeah, season long control. I mean, your snow mold application is the reason why the lawn doesn't get dollar spot in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the caddy or the Tersan OM, right?
Yeah.
So
I think
we've moved beyond that. We've moved
I-
way beyond that.
it's a miracle that some people live through that. I remember the old man. I think I've told this story before, but the old man at the first golf course I worked at that would mix up, some of that stuff. The heavy metal stuff was gone at this point, but there's still some pretty rough stuff out there. And that guy would eat an
Mhm.
apple while he's mixing up and cutting bags of dry flowable daconil in, and just
Ooh.
just yeah. I mean, listen, the guy lived till he was like 86. I mean, he lived a good life. I think the
And he had
daconil.
the best looking toes, not 1 ounce of foot fungus to be seen anywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. Him and John Madden never met off the football field.
No,
John was
no.
a podiatrist apparently. So okay. What else? What else on the grub control thing? I want to make sure we answer all your questions.
I know that was. I think that covered it up. We went over options, timing. I mean, that pretty much sums it up with that.
That's
And
good.
then your favorite topic, I think,
I
is
don't know
what
about
we
my
have
favorite
time left
topic.
for. That's your
I don't know.
favorite. You know, you're excited.
I mean, hey, I like to get it wet if I can.
I
not too
actually,
wet.
I feel better this time. I actually had pre-show notes and
You were. I'll tell you what.
Stuff.
This seriously. This is no joke. Now you all don't know this, but I do, and I'll share it with you real quick. Lushie's texted me last night. I'm literally in travel hell. I am planes, trains, and automobiles trying to get from Providence back home to Columbus, and ended up having to fly to Cleveland and get into the hotel at like 3:00 in the morning, only to have to get picked up. Like it was a nightmare. But I'm texting, like furiously texting back and forth with Lushie, who's preparing like he's got his ACT the next day, right? And he's trying to get a 36
Yeah.
on it. So he put the work in. He put the work in, man. So
Mhm.
it definitely is
It
worth
shows.
it's been worth the effort. It's been worth the effort. So okay, now let's talk about what you bring it up. What are we talking about here?
So, J Pink, I sent you some pictures of the little yellow scales there with water in them. You find those?
You did, but they were buried in all the other stuff, and I forgot. 1 second.
Best producer in the business. You'll get it. So the reason I bring that up, but these are what I hand out to customers for irrigation. And I know we've talked a lot about it. How much water do we need to put down? How often do we need to put down? So these
Mhm.
are some of the tools I give my customers that, they ask me, well, how long should I run my zone? How long should my system run? And I say, all right, well, at least you want to do a watering with at least a half an inch. I'll give them 3 or 4 of these, say, here you go, put these in the yard and go around and calibrate your system. This was a system that this is a friend of mine who is a hardscaper, who put kind of his homemade system in. He had in this little yard had to run his lawn for 45 minutes to get a half an inch of water. So I said, well,
Jeez.
it works, but not great. But
Heard
at least
that.
now you know. I said, at least you know how much you need to go. In my discussions with Ryan is, all right, now how do I know when it needs the water? And I know we've talked about dew points. We've talked about evapotranspiration, the amount of water that's pushing through the plant. And how do you balance all this information to be able to give the customer or as a homeowner the right amount of water to go down, not the, well, just water deep and infrequent, do 2 or 3 waterings for 20 minutes or whatever it might be, and try to give them more educated information versus just a rule of thumb.
Right. No, I think that's good. So let me see if I can pull this out of here, and if I can't, then I'll put. Okay, so real quick, let's. So the question is, I guess, or the topic is really what through what methods and means should we instruct customers on how to water appropriately, given the current soil conditions and the impending weather. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Obviously a tough one, and I'm sure that you probably get an ass load of questions related to this topic, and it's a huge important topic, right? I mean, Ray, I would venture to say that water either the lack thereof or the excess amount of water would be, if we were going to look at, like the number one killers of humans, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all that kind of stuff, water might be number one. I think the number
Yeah.
one reason that turf shits the bed and dies.
It either dies or it becomes unmaintainable. One of the two factors, because
Okay.
just enough water, and what Ryan said about how much water to keep up with evapotranspiration. That is something that I'm constantly mindful of, because what I typically tell people is whatever money you save on water during the winter months, I hope you have that money for the summer up until about November or December, because from about April till November, at least here in my area, you are going to be irrigating up to 3/4 of an inch to an inch of water per week.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
It is no joke that those numbers can fluctuate. But for those of you playing along at home and you customers out there of Lush Lawns that are probably watching this after the fact and saying, this guy is so darn smart, so good looking, and gosh, am I glad that he's my lawn care provider.
Call me lawn boy.
Hey, call me a lawn boy. Yeah. That's what we said. Actually, we said that at the turf show that Lushie's calling card, Ray, should be that they only do their apps in assless chaps that are like branded, like they've got, all the Lush Lawn stickers and everything all over them. Okay.
As long as I got my field source Speedo.
Oh yeah, banana hammock for sure. It's either it's gonna be it's either gonna we have two sizes. We have three sizes. We've got number one, the banana hammock. Then we go on one side of it, and we've got the mini corn dog hammock. And then just for Telly Coleman, we've got the python cage. That's the other one. It's a little bit difficult to get on and wear, but you do what you got to do. All right, so let's talk about ways that we can quantify how much to water and when to water. Okay, so this, there's a variety of different ways. Let's just talk about why and how. All right, so J Pink, go ahead and throw up that first photo that I sent you real quick. All right, so you mentioned the premise and the topic of evapotranspiration. Okay, Ray, would you please use this diagram here to quickly explain what evapotranspiration is and how precipitation fits into that paradigm?
All right. Evapotranspiration is literally the combined effect of evaporation from soil and the plant transpiring or utilizing water, because you see plants, they take up water, and part of that water gets used to be reacted with the carbon dioxide in air to create sugars and carbohydrates. Other part of that water is also used, believe it or not, for plant cooling. So, essentially, the plant is essentially taking up water and utilizing it, all while a significant amount of the water can also be evaporating from the soil. So,
Okay.
the amount of water that you then need to replace is what we refer to in the business as ET, evapotranspiration rate. ET.
Right.
I mean, it's not the movie. It's not the movie. When I say ET, I'm talking about the evapotranspiration rate, or the amount of water that I need to apply per week to maintain physiological function of the grass.
Correct. So a couple of things related to this. So ET is expressed. It's a quantifiable number. So just as you would measure rainfall in terms of, hey, we got 1/4 of an inch of rain or 0.25 inches of rain, right? We express ET as a deficit or a departure, right, from what we should have in the soil, right, for a healthy plant. And this is based on a crop coefficient. What a crop coefficient means is that so corn needs more water than soybeans because there's more biomass, right? More green tissue. And conversely, grass has less tissue than both of those plants, so its crop coefficient's different. Now, the thing that is not super well defined, like we've got some good models for cool and warm season that are okay, right? That we can use, and maybe even better than okay. However, what we've learned here over the last several years of really looking at water use and drought and things like that is that you know a lot of what has been recommended for years, right? We're finding that we can achieve healthy turf grass at levels of 50% ET in some cases, right? So that tells us that okay, does that mean that that's really where it's at, or is our crop coefficient not right? So actually, a lot of this work, fortunately for you, right, and especially in the eastern half of the United States, is actually taking place at none other than UMass Amherst, right? So Dr. Michelle Costa and her labs, they're doing a ton of work on water use and turf grass. Minnesota's also doing quite a bit too. So good resources to have for you. And there's actually a paper that came out. I remember reading it here. I tried to search for it quickly, but couldn't pull it up. But where there was a grad student from Michelle's lab that was actually working on crop coefficients for specific turf types, so tall fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, Purdue ryegrass in New England, right? So that would
Mm-hmm.
be useful information for you to understand that and maybe what some of the differences are there. All right, so this number gets expressed as a quantifiable number, right? So J Pink, real quick, can you flip over to that next photo real quick? All right, so here are the factors that go into determining evapotranspiration, right? So wind, right? So if we have more wind, it's going to pull more water or more moisture out of the soil, okay? Solar radiation, same thing. It's going to heat up the soil and evaporate. Temperature, same thing, a function of evaporation as well. And then finally, humidity, right? So for humidity's up, right, that's going to be less moisture that's leaving the soil itself. Now, this doesn't account for what Ray talked about, which is the process of transpiration, which is how grass plants consume water and also cool themselves. Okay. So, all this being said, right, we get to a point where we then have to calculate what we should do, right? So, let me send you this link real quick. J Pink. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Send this and this. Here we go. All right. So, again, Lushie, you are fortunate to live in the greatest area of the country, New England, right? Home of the most dominant sports teams in all of America. And also this fantastic resource from Cornell University, right, where they pull over 200 sites across New England together to figure out a lot of different things. This is a fantastic resource if you're in the Northeast to use for a variety of different things. And we'll kind of go through a few of them here real quick. But the first thing is of potential of evapotranspiration, right? So this is giving you sort of a range of about where you're at week over week, and you can kind of look at this. There's another part of the site though that I want to see if I can pull up, and I'm not sure. Here we go. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna send you this one here to J Pink because this is a good one. Boom. Well, it took you to the same thing, but why is it showing me different? Hang on. Technical. Click that link, J Pink, and see if it's any different. Same thing. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so go to irrigation information. So this has a bunch of really cool graphs on it. So go to like moisture deficit. There you go. So total precipitation. So this is giving you precipitation minus, right? So this is where if you are getting rain, it's actually factoring that in and then giving you back essentially what your ET is. So these are good maps. These are things that you can send out to customers and say, hey, like it's particularly dry right now, or it's particularly wet right now. You can pull these down. These are always in real time. There's also some really cool things in here. Click on turf and weed development. Sort of off topic, but we'll go down this rabbit hole real quick. Slide up left-hand column. There you go. Dandelion recommendation, seed head stuff. you got a lot of good things in here that you can click on and use and show other folks, right? Disease risk is in there, so look at that. So lots of good stuff. I trust this website far more than I trust some of the other commercially available websites. All right, so now these customers have sort of a range, right? Of, oh, hey, like it looks like we lost about a 1/4 inch last week. What do we do? Okay, so I'm gonna send this over. This is something that we use to talk about it in professional turfgrass management, but we can sort of apply the same principles into a lawn care program. All right. J Pink, throw that one up real quick and we'll run through this. All right. So, here is sort of our decision making hierarchy. And Ray, you can agree or disagree as far as if you want to back up a little bit. There you go. Nice. Excellent. All right. So if we start at the top, right, of evapotranspiration, this is going to be sort of our guidepost. So let's just say that, hey, over the last week, we've lost, 0.48 inches, right? We're at -4, 0.48 on our ET. Okay. So, the first things that we want to look at, right, is what is our existing turf conditions? Even though we're at, whatever, just say 1/2 inch, right, of ET over the last 7 days, it hasn't rained. What are our turf conditions like? Is it dry? Is it still looking good, right? Evaluate our turf conditions first before we decide what we're going to water necessarily, okay? Can't just go off of numbers. We have to go off of how things look because there are site-specific variables that may or may not lend to turf grass being able to withstand longer periods, right, of no rainfall, right, or no irrigation. So the next thing that we look at after we look at existing turf conditions would be anticipated weather conditions, right? And you can make a quick video to walk through this. I will even show you how, and you should know how already because you attended my seminar and saw me talk about loom. So you can make a quick loom video, send that out to everybody. They'll hear your warm, soft voice on that gaming microphone that you have attached to your face right now, and they will love you for it, okay? But anticipated weather conditions is another thing, right? So let's just say that, Ray, we're, we just had rainfall a couple of days ago. It looks a little bit dry, but then we've got some more rain coming in. We might look at the forecast and say, oh, you know what? The ET's telling me I probably should water today, but it's going to rain, another day from now. So waiting another day, maybe not the end of the world if I let it go for one more day before we get some rainfall. And this is where, you start to gain ground on water use and water consumption if you can make these decisions. Now, I understand that there's a lot going into this, right? Much more than most homeowners are willing to put in. But the question for them would be, if you want to set it and forget it, fine. But you're running the risk of, number one, wasting a lot of water, two, potentially putting at risk a lot of turf that they pay a significant amount of money to have maintained correctly. And through no fault of your own, is that going to be compromised with too much or too little water? And finally, right, the idea that, why would we do something that we don't need to do when we don't need to do it? Would that apply to anything else in their life? Would you just say, hey, you know what? It's been a little cold, right? It's been a little bit cold outside, so I'm going to leave the sink on tonight and run the water so the pipes don't freeze. Just because.
Exactly.
Because I want to.
Just because. Yeah. Just because
it's Tuesday, and I fill my car up on Tuesday, and I just I put $10 in, and I pump, and it just pours on the ground. That's okay.
Yeah,
no,
that's okay. That's okay.
Thing.
It's the same thing.
Thursday night.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, if you don't need it, you don't need it. And there is something on this slide here, Ryan, that I hammer on, and you know what that is? Distribution uniformity.
I thought it was firmness.
No,
so that's one thing I did not go into on down here. Okay. Now this is more for if you're getting into some high end shit. I didn't, you can just block that out if you're looking at home. But Ray, talk about distribution uniformity and why it would be important in an application like this.
The reason why distribution uniformity becomes important is because if you are trying to optimize the site and actually minimize overall water consumption of the site, distribution uniformity becomes critical because, Ryan and Lushie, here's what typically happens to me. I recalculate somebody's irrigation system to put down what I consider is an acceptable amount of water to keep the grass alive given the prevailing conditions. Keeping in mind time of year, soil type, weather conditions, and type of turf. What usually happens to me is when I do that and I'm no longer running the irrigation to supply an extreme excess of water, distribution uniformity comes to get me because all the spots in the lawn that are light on the water die.
Well, and I think the most important point, the thing to think about there is, when you have somebody coming out to uh, measure for and estimate irrigation install cost, see how thorough they are when they do that, because that little bit of difference that, oh man, like, hey, this guy's $1,000 more, you could easily save that back. The ROI on that could be very swift, and it could be the difference between a really shitty and poorly installed system, right?
I've seen a
Versus
lot of
having one.
those.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, checking the box and saying I have irrigation is not necessarily a place that you want to be in life,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Having a
Yeah,
good
I had a,
irrigation system is go ahead.
I was just going to say I had another customer who had irrigation, but now we're working into an older irrigation system. It was a good company that put it in, good installation, but now we're just into an older system that uses a well that draws up fines, and she's complaining that we're burning the grass, that this isn't right and this doesn't look good. And I'm like, I told the customer, I just don't think you're putting enough water. And I gave her a bunch of those those little cups are very actually really good. And she went around and she was putting out I think tenth of an inch after 40 minutes of running her irrigation.
Oh,
And she
Okay.
said, "Well,
oh,
that's too much. I can't run it that long." I said, "You're not putting any water out. I don't care how long you're other than electricity on your pump." Um, so she went around and actually, I said, I can replace your heads. It'll be this much. I'll do it. So, fine. She changed the heads. She ran it. She sent me a picture, and after 40 minutes, she was up to a half an inch. So,
Yes.
you know, finding
heard
finding
that.
that she, made that difference. Being able to use that and give that to them to kind of at least get it started in the right direction. But this is good to be able to tell them what's going on a little bit more if they want to go down that road. And then I have, I have my buddy who drives me insane who just likes to watch sprinklers while he drinks. So he'll just turn them on at 12 o'clock at night and watch it go around because it entertains him. So
Oh, hey, it's the little
yeah,
things, man. You
that's
gotta
right. Then
appreciate
he's
that.
also the same one that asks why he has dollar spot in the middle of the summer because he's watering the hell out of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
they call
Mhm.
I think they call that Henry disease, something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think it's an important topic. I think that NRCC site is a crucial tool, something that you can send out and try to educate, you know, clients and customers and everything like that. There's other good ones out there. I think the Midwest is a little bit devoid, but if you want to get real technical and scientific with it, is setting up a weather station. There's some really good weather stations out there that are sub $1,000 that you can set up at your home, and that's always good data to have, right? In terms of weather data, so you can go back and look, for your specific area, in terms of what's happening. No, not only with temperature, relative humidity, wind, all that kind of stuff, but also with respect to ET. It could be a very, very useful thing.
And I
All
know
right,
there
so
was a lot of
go ahead, go ahead,
there was a lot of
go ahead.
talk about that moisture meters.
Yeah, what do you want to talk
Now, is
about?
that something that I'm just going to say, is that something you could set up at maybe a couple different customers and that you can pull the information from?
Absolutely, I think there's a huge case to be made on deploying them. I will share with you. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see here. Give me a minute. Bear with me. I'm not sure what are the other what are the other phrases that they train you to say in IT, Ping, while you're sitting there fiddling around looking for something on the computer.
Hit it with a hammer. Have
hold
you turned
on.
it on and turned it off?
Yeah, have you unplugged it yet? All that
Did
kind
you
of
wait
stuff.
30 seconds?
Did
I'm
you
gonna
wait 30
find it.
seconds?
Where is this thing at? I'll find. Yeah, I hear you. I'll find it and send it to you. But there's I did a good thing about a good thing on man, where is that thing? It's gonna kill me. I'm trying to find it. But anyway, of how to deploy these if you're a lawn care operator, and particularly the in-ground ones that are wireless and feed data back through a cell card back to an online portal that you can go in and look at. So where I see
Yes.
these being particularly useful would be you know, a few different situations. Number one would be high profile accounts, obviously ones that you can't mess up and that maybe you have a little bit greater control over in terms of a little bit more than just the spraying and fertilizing and that's it, right? The other thing would be seed jobs. I think it could be particularly useful to
Mhm.
stick one of these in the ground, a depth of say 2 inches, and you'll know if Mrs. Jones, right, is watering this on a regular basis. It's always
On
a
a
good thing to
consistent
kind of use.
basis, yes.
Call it
Mhm.
Right.
your accountability friend, right? It can help in that situation. And then finally, right, would be situations where you know that there are properties that could be trigger properties that maybe dry out a little bit quicker or stay a little bit wetter longer, right? To understand what some of those dynamics that might be at play in certain areas, right? So whether it's a certain part of town, a certain subdivision, whatever. And the nice thing about these things is you really only need like a cup cutter to take them out and put them in, right? So a couple $100 on a cup cutter. The in-ground sensors range right now. I want to say that they're maybe $700-800, and then you've got it's one-time fee, and then you've got like $150-200, for cell service to maintain that year over year. So something buying a couple of those I think could pay dividends just to play around with and sort of figure out where those numbers need to be, and it maybe gives you something a little bit more closely aligned with how to make those recommendations for customers. And you never know, it could be something that you sell to customers, right? And you can create like user and parent and user accounts, right? To where you can always look in on what's going on, but they can also have access to it and use that to base their watering decisions on too. So you build out a little network of that, you sell some of those, you make a little bit of money on the side, and you have much better access to say, hey, listen, I put that aceleprint down on May 1st, and I noticed that we didn't get any rain, and you surely didn't water this in. So, don't come at me telling me you got grubs, right?
Yeah. If you didn't
It's not, and
water, just
and
saying.
it's really not. It's not that unreasonable because if you can control your irrigation and you're not
Mhm.
overwatering and creating a problem with fungus, that maybe you can mitigate out some of your fungicide applications.
Mhm.
That maybe they won't need it. They might be able to
Mhm.
to create that savings just right in one season without having to
Mm.
purchase something like that. Not to say that's going to be the end all be all, but
It'll be actually be a good tool. And overall, think about this. If you can optimize irrigation during even the most stressful times, maybe
Mhm.
people aren't going to be losing their lawn in the summer and having to overseed the entire damn thing because it all dried up and burned out. You see, I see
Boom.
the savings,
mhm.
I see the savings of having tight control over water, diseases, efficacy of your product applications like your grub control, your pre-emergent fertilizers, and then lastly, optimum amount of water so that the grass holds through summer and you're not having to renovate every single fall on the dot. It's just kind of like the savings compound because then think about it. I know you can fix various things. Worst case scenario, you overseed, but ain't got time for that.
Yeah,
Right?
if it were me, I would look at really what I would look at is buy one or two and test them out. And I think what you seek to prove is that for the cost of whatever you would charge to have it and monitor it, right, that people could save that money back in X number of months or years or whatever, right? And I think that's really the ultimate goal, right? Is we're trying to conserve and put down only what we need, and through doing that, it's highly likely that we're going to be able to reduce the consumption of water on turf grass. I think almost universally that we would be able to do that. So, and hopefully you don't open up, you make me eat my words and open up lush lawns like Palm Springs or something like that. But I think in your area, we should be pretty good. So, all right, what else did we not cover? What else do we need to cover?
I don't think we have. I mean, we went through a bunch of it. We didn't get into the nitty gritty of applications per round of nitrogen.
Oh, that's when you're going to come back on though, and do
Yeah,
that this summer.
I mean, it's only been year 2 and we've only gotten this far, so we get.
Be happy with what you got, all right? I'm kidding. I'm
Hey,
kidding.
for my Patreon, it's where I got every penny out of it, because I really do think that maybe if more people paid, that we could have maybe longer shows or maybe another show,
Oh man, hey,
or maybe we could buy Ryan a private jet so he could
shut up.
get people around.
How about just get me a Greyhound bus? That's all I need. A Greyhound bus with
The John
a
Madden
dirty,
bus.
yeah, a dirty lavatory, and plenty of hand lotion, and I'll be set. So, all right. Without further ado, we are going to enter into the after show. If you're not familiar with that, you have to become a Patreon member, right? And check us out over there. Get yourself linked up. Get on the Discord. You'll get a link that lasts for 10 minutes only, and then it disappears into where the evapotranspiration goes, into the atmosphere, gone forever. Who knows where it ends up? Also, quick shout out there from Lushie to our friend, our good friend, Mr. Ryan Knorr. He's got a great video that's coming out next week. I can't wait for it. Golf course video. I might need that hand lotion just for that video. Now, all that being said, the after show, if you have never been to that there before, a little bit of adult talk, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of humor, and nothing, Ray, but the truth. So, without further ado, again, Lushie, thank you so much for your hospitality this past week in person. I hope our 5th date's as good as our first 4. And gentlemen, ladies, we will see you on the next one.